On the second Thursday of every month at 11:30 a.m, hundreds of people in businesses and government agencies around Australia and the world sit at their desks in a refresh on the ABS website, waiting for the monthly employment figures to be released. Once the data goes live, people pore over dozens of tables to try and understand what has happened in the labour force over the last month and what it might mean for the Australian economy.
To simplify this process and create greater transparency and accessibility to labour force data, we have created Live Labour Force, a visualization of the latest labour force statistics that is linked directly to the ABS Stat API. This means that the users of this data no longer need to dive into Excel tables every month to understand what is going on in the labour force. All the information they need is neatly presented in an interactive and visual way. The most closely followed labour force statistic is the unemployment rate, so this is the focus of the data we've presented.
Users are introduced to a waterfall, which shows how the unemployment rate has changed and what has driven this change. We show how changes in the population, the participation rate, and jobs added or lost have impacted the unemployment rate. Users can click on each of the bars in the waterfall to see how that factor is broken down across the states, and by sex and by age group. They can also click on the forecast button to see where the unemployment rate is likely to head next and how the updated forecast differs from last month's.
While we have created a relatively simple interface for a specific purpose, the idea could be extended in a number of ways. Data from other sources could be incorporated to provide greater insight into how the labour force is changing, what occupations are growing or contracting, and how is the participation rate being affected by rates of tertiary study, retirement, and other factors. With minimal adaptation, similar apps could be created for any other statistic available through the APS Stat API, whether it be CPI, migration, or broader demographic changes.
Live Labour Force was created by us,
David Ma,
and me, Nick Preston, as well as Tim Cameron and Hugh Parsonage for Govhack 2014. We hope that it will become a useful tool for policymakers, economists, journalists, and other consumers of labour force statistics.